Namaste. Welcome. Now, you gotta behave yourself. It's my assistant. We're probably gonna hear more from him, right?
Oh.
So, let's talk about the heart a little bit different today. But let's just first kind of chill and leave the day behind and come here. So take some breaths and feel the weight of your body. These are simply ways to bring yourself into the present. Feel the breath go in and out. Use a mantra. Listen to the sounds around you, the sound of my voice, the sound inside your ears. Come into this space of intimacy with yourself. We call it the heart. In all the turmoil of our lives, we forget that this place is always available and always pristine, always completely at ease. It's the medicine we have for life, the most potent medicine. And we just need to remember to use it. Using it is the simplest thing in the world, but it becomes difficult because we're distracted into 1,000 things. Now, don't let my words distract you. Simply sink into the heart. And notice that the mind may still chatter. Just let it do what it does. And go underneath the mind into that still place of the heart. The chatter of the mind is like the waves on the surface of the ocean, but you're deep down in that still place, that place of profound richness in your hridayam, your deepest heart. And see if you can notice the thoughts, but let them become background. As you drink from the heart, drink that exquisite nectar of self-love. And let it flow into every part of your being. When we're together in silence like this, there's actually communication going on. And it takes a certain sensitivity to pick that up. So I'm simply pointing that out so you can just let go a little bit deeper into the heart. And it's not so much a communication from one person to another. It's a communication of being in this place of peace, this place of abundant generosity, being in that place together. Coco.
Come here. Coco.
Enough! Enough!
Coco.
Love takes all forms. Okay, you got enough now? Come here. So don't let it disturb you. The heart hasn't moved an inch. What happened to your mind? A dog was barking, a person was coming. Nothing happened. The heart is still and wide and open, embracing it all. Little waves on the surface. You in that deep place of peace. Taste it, feel it. Find that place of this absolute generosity in you and be generous with you in taking you there, in feeling it, in nurturing yourself, in listening to the exquisite sound, the exquisite essence of this silence which we are communicating right here. And simply by letting go, flow deeper and deeper into the heart. And perhaps the mind comes and you think and you believe you're not doing it right, and this kind of self-talk goes on. And that's also just waves on the surface. And you now come deep into that stillness of the heart, that richness, that profound compassion and caring for yourself. And for yourself, as including all things, being one with all things. When you love yourself this way, there's nothing excluded. You love all things. Become deeply aware of what's going on right now in your heart, in the deepest place in you, the core of your being. And with that, everywhere. See, if your mind now talks, that is an intention to move you away from that stillness, from this place of love. And just notice that. You don't have to give in to it. Because there's also the part of you that just wants to sink deeper and deeper into that inner essence, into that fullness in you. And sometimes there's a struggle between those two forces. That's okay. But where your intention is, that determines which one will win. And of course, the deep place of the heart has already won in a timeless manner, because it is always there. Just a question when we come around to noticing. And right now is a good opportunity. So again, sink even more deeply into that heart space. The deeper you sink into the heart, the more blissful your experience will be. Okay, so let's take a deep breath. Exhale. All the way, exhale out. In again. Relax. I think I started by saying let's talk about that space of love in a little different way today. And what comes to my mind is Kathmandu. I used to live in Kathmandu at different periods in the early 70s and came to really love the people and the place. It's a really sacred place on the face of this earth. And now, of course, the whole thing just moved, you know?
Yeah.
We got some doggy issues here. Of course, we have this great tragedy now of the earthquake there and pretty dire circumstances. Kathmandu Valley is this great valley right in the middle of the Himalayas. And it used to be a lake. And in the lake there's an island. And that island is one of the great power spots on this planet. And it is said that the Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri, in the Tibetan tradition, came and manifested on the top of this island as a blue lotus. Called in, what's the word? A radiant blue lotus. And Manjushri has this symbolic sword, which is the sword that cuts through duality into the oneness of things, cuts through past and present and future into even deeper than the now. And he took that sword and he cut the mountains so the water would flow out. And this lake became this great plain, which is now the plain of Kathmandu and several other cities. And in the middle of it is this hill called Swayambhunath, sacred for all the different religions in this area. On the top of Swayambhu is this great stupa. And when I heard about this tragedy of the many people dead and hurt and bad situation, suddenly I had this image that came to me, and it was the image of the valley with this blue lotus, just absolutely brilliant, just radiating with this intense light. And it made immediately sense to me, because this is a symbol, of course, of the wisdom that is in us, that is what we are. But we don't have access to that wisdom, because Why? Because we're too dull going about our daily lives and our daily concerns. And it's when life gets disrupted in a powerful way, when we face great challenges, when suddenly that curtain between life and death is ripped, is torn. It's at that time that the wisdom can truly shine into us and we can grasp, not even through mental understanding at all, but we can grasp somehow the greatness of life that comes to us from the other side of birth and death, that comes to us from the other side of suffering. That wisdom that points us to the fact that we're not these bodies, not these people who suffer and desire and fear, but that we are beings who participate in the timeless grace that expresses itself as creation itself. That's the wisdom aspect in us. And the other side of that coin is the great and unending love, the profound bliss of that deep place in us. Now, like I said, when everything is hunky-dory, we are just too distracted to pay attention. So it's when things get tough that something in us has the opportunity to awaken. I got one of the self-assessments we use today from a woman named Kathleen. And one of the things she wrote is that sometimes she falls into depression. She has a good spiritual practice going, but sometimes she falls into depression and goes into this place, oh, what's the use? Why even bother, right? It doesn't matter what the traps and the dark places are that you have. It matters that you understand that in those dark places you can find the light in a way that it shines so brilliantly that you don't lose it, that it really transforms you. It's then that we can embrace something that shows us grace. But for that, we need to be aware not to get stuck in complaining or in indulging, in pushing away the discomfort, in escaping from it. All of these things don't work. We must face the discomfort. Not because we're masochists, but because it is the source of grace. Otherwise, we're asleep. So in the moments when we're high and we see the brilliance of who we are, that's when it touches us, and also in the places when we're down and low. Those are the places, the particular places where grace can become a tangible experience. And it is a matter of practice. So we just did a meditation. Actually, I don't even want to call it a meditation. It was obviously a different experience for all of us. For me, it was a little time where it was difficult even to interrupt myself and say something, but it helps, I know, to be called back out of thoughts into this heart space. And each one of you had a different experience of that moment. And if you listen to the recording again, just the beginning part, you may be able to go more deeply into that stillness and actually taste the substance, the texture of it in you. But now I want us to do something different. I want us to not go to the most comfortable places, but to the dark places where you sometimes go, and you each have a sense of where that is, what that is, a memory of a time when you didn't feel good, perhaps didn't feel good at all, when the mind was pushing you down just a little bit more and you believed it. Because the mind has no power to hurt you. None whatsoever, if you don't believe what it says. Unfortunately, we're hypnotized. The mind says something, we go, oh yeah, it's true. Every stressful thought, every belief that has been a nemesis for you for God knows how long can be questioned. It's just a thought. It may be true or not. But still, we know these thoughts have power. The emotional patterns that are connected to these thoughts can put us into terrible places. So I invite you, have some courage, go into a place like that. You don't have to go fully into it, just taste a little bit, get a little whiff of it. Let's go into that depth, and then I will just talk you through what you can do when you're in a place like that. Because that's when our spiritual practice shows whether it's worth anything. Just to feel nice and la-di-da and everything is wonderful, yeah, that's very nice. But when the going gets tough, when the earthquake hits, whatever your earthquake is, can we be present then, fully present? Can we penetrate into the heart where the grace is and the medicine lies for anything that can hurt us? So let's take a moment. Again, come present to yourself. Go to your breath. And for a moment, focus on the breath with such intensity that the thoughts truly recede. That all you're aware of is this very breath that you're breathing. And then dare to invite that place of darkness that you know. Invite just a little bit of it. You can control it. It has been in you for a long time, this memory. And you know how to keep it at bay. But you also can bring up just a taste of it. And now you may notice how your whole being just wants to run away from it. Wants to push it away. Wants to get angry, wants to get depressed, wants to get anxious. Just notice that. Stay in your center. You are not this emotion. The emotion passes through. You are in the depth of the ocean. The thoughts and emotions are the little waves on the surface. Watch them. No need to be overwhelmed. That's just another thought. So you can see the tendency to run away from this, to escape, to fight it off, or to indulge, or to complain. This is how we waste our time. This is how we invite the pain to come back again and again. We react to that which hurts as though it was an enemy or a threat. But it is not that. It is a part of you that needs help. It is not ultimately a part of you, but right now, for practical reasons, it's there. You can feel it. So when you understand that this darkness, this dreaded sensation, is a part of you that needs help, at that very moment, a positive healing approach becomes possible. You can now scan through your body and sense, where do you feel it most intensely? Is it that knot in the stomach, the heaviness in the chest, the tightness in the throat, the tension in the shoulders, the tension in the head, the clenched jaw, the pain on the back? Identify where you feel that part of you that needs help. Mentally scan through the body, identify it exactly, it's right there. See the size of it, the character of the sensation. There may be an image or images that arise there, like a knot in the stomach, an empty space in the chest. Just let these images come, don't produce them. Or simply feel what is going on. Be present with it. Realizing that this is a part of you that needs help. You may feel completely powerless in that place. There may be a great sense of despair, of shame, of disgust, of fear. And the medicine for all of that is in you, the most powerful medicine, in the very core of the heart. So first you become aware of the sensation of that dreadful thing, that negative emotion. Become aware where you feel it in the body and you are present to it. You open, you pay attention. And then you remember that in the very core of your heart, in the very center of your being, is the source of that effulgent love. And you may imagine it as a light, as the warmth of the sun shining from inside of you, or you may feel it. Open deeply to feel it and let it radiate into that pain. Let it be that point of light in the deepest darkness, but you have to look for it. And it is always there. Just on the other side of your attachment to your pain. And whether you imagine it or actually see it or feel it, let it radiate into that space, that dark space. And just let it happen. Nothing to do here but be fully aware. This is how you find the medicine for even the deepest, most dreadful pain in the very core of your being. Always interior to any pain, to any fear. It is already there. It is the great invincible power of the heart. Let it cleanse you of everything you do not need. And you do not need any suffering at all. It is only needed as long as you still produce it. In the core of your being, in the here and now, you have always been free of it. And you invite it back into that place, fully and consciously. And just notice what happens inside of you. Notice what happens as you allow that light, that warmth to shine inside of you. As you find that point of light in the darkness. As you for a moment don't believe your dreadful thoughts. As you, for just an instant, disidentify from what you're not and find what you are. And then take a deep breath and relax and just enjoy this afterglow of the heart. It's like you do this type of exercise and you bring the heart out in you. It's like ringing a bell. And then you hear the sound for a long time. You can feel that warmth inside of you. And you do not have to be afraid any longer of that which you fear. The fear is still around. It's one of the waves on the surface. And you know this place of the heart. You know a force that can dissolve it all. It can truly transform your experience of life and give you what you've always been looking for. You may call it happiness. Happiness is not a surface thing. Surface things come and go. Happiness is the very core of your being. It's the love in you that doesn't stop at anything. Okay, any questions? Any comments? Any complaints? We got a treat. Kamala sent us some prasad for all of us to share. It's wonderful. Thank you, Kamala, from New Mexico. We're going to enjoy this. So, I know, this is like, I should never do this. I start with these meditations and then everybody becomes brain dead. But you have to try to speak from that place of the heart. So it makes it real. We can function from here. Yes?
So how do you separate that being with like what you've gone through? How do you do that separation at that moment, other than just stopping? I mean, I guess stopping and meditating, but are there other ways?
What are you trying to separate?
Because you're talking about how the being is separated, and it's maybe I don't understand that part well, but
Okay.
How you keep saying that you're not what we think we are, or what we're living in. So how do you?
Well, you're talking about things in the past,
Mm-hmm.
right? What do we know about them in reality? They're over. You don't need to separate anything. They're over. They're gone. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
So why are they still with you? What happens? How does that happen?
Well, doesn't it affect you? Doesn't it make you who you are today?
Well, it does, as long as you have this tape loop that every once in a while it starts off and it plays the experience of the past, the painful experience of the past, and then it's happening right now again, right? So I don't know what it is that you're referring to, perhaps a painful experience. How long did this experience last?
Lifetime.
No, I'm talking the actual event, earlier in your life.
My teenage years.
Your teenage years, right? How long are they over?
15 years.
15 years. So the teenage years are maybe like, so that the real brunt of it is maybe 5 years or more, something like that. So that was 5 years. Now for 15 years, you've continued it, right? 3 times as long. There you have a choice. But, we don't have a choice because in our culture, we're not taught what to do. We run to therapists and they tell us, oh, this person screwed you up and you're so in such bad shape because of that's what happened and so on, and then we work on that. But that's not it. Because behind that, there's something else that caused you pain. And behind that, there's something else. It goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. Now, That work can certainly ease the load, can ease the burden, absolutely. But here we're into becoming free. So you have to understand that whatever pain you experience in the here and now, and in your case, through imagination. This imagination. You can also have the same thing with the future. Oh, something dreadful is going to happen. Whether that's a concise picture of something or just sort of this sense of dread, of the unknown, right? All of that is imagination. So why don't we do something about this fascination with unhappy imagination, right? And we invite it. This is what we just did. So I'm just talking us through that so we can have an understanding, right? We invite it. We say, okay, imagination, come on, wherever you are, past, future, whatever label is on it, right? It's always happening now only because that's the only time we've got in reality, right? So then here you are, and you're in the dreadful place, right? The dreadful place we experience like it's a threat or an enemy. And we do one of four things. We fight, we flee. That's fight or flight, right? But we do more. We indulge sometimes, especially with depression and stuff like this. You know, it feels so good to feel so bad. And we complain, either inside of us, and we can complain, oh, it's so terrible, or I'm so terrible and I'll never get it, or we complain out loud. And part of fighting, you know, fight or flight, all the addictions come into that. You know, everything's like, oh, I don't feel what I feel, right? And when I fight, I can also sort of transpose it into fighting with somebody, being angry at somebody, having conflicts in my life and all that kind of stuff. You know, none of this can work, of course, but that's what we do until we train the mind a little, right? So the core piece of that is to understand that we're not dealing with a threat or an enemy when we have these bad feelings, but that they are, at this moment, a part of us that needs help. Without that awareness, we won't know what to do because a positive approach is not available, right? Now, the positive approach rests on the fact that we have in us the one source of love and complete compassion and kindness and light, which means wisdom, that is available to you. You can read all the wisdom books in the world or all the books about divine love and stuff like this. Unless you feel it, it won't mean anything. Just, you know, letters on paper. When you feel it, it becomes real. The same thing in a relationship. When you're in a relationship, the love doesn't come from your beloved into you. It arises here because of the particular chemistry of the moment, which will change. This is not permanent out there, right? But this is permanent. This is always there. And to me, it's the most amazing thing that human beings have lived on this planet now for, we're told, 200,000 years. And we always want to be happy. And we haven't figured out where it comes from. And it's like so obvious once you see it. Before you see it, it's like, don't have a clue. The source of happiness, the source of love is here. And we can train our minds to go here. And especially when we suffer, then we have incentive to look for a solution, right? When you're sick, you need medicine. When you're healthy, you don't care, right? So when you're sick, in other words, when you go on purpose at times, or when it just happens into this place of suffering, then that suffering is just like energy. You can let it rip you to shreds, or you can use it understanding, part of me that needs help. Where's the medicine? Here, right? So you use that suffering as energy to focus your mind into the place where the medicine is, which is the heart. And don't let the attention escape. Just focus it here and drink from that that medicine and direct that medicine into the place of pain. And it may be right around it. I had a session with a student who went inside and saw this black, dark room inside of his chest, and himself sitting in there being absolutely depressed and dejected, unable to do anything, like total image of depression, right? So what did I tell him? Stay with that. Don't do anything. Go deeper. Go deeper. You know, all we want to do is escape from there. But then that part of us, that image is just an image of his pain, of his depression. That part of us does not get resolved because it needs attention, awareness for it to resolve itself, right? So you go into that and you stay there. You go, you study each part of it. You become fascinated by that part of you that needs help. And sure enough, after a while, it will shift. Something will shift. It may not go fast. You may have cultivated this particular suffering for decades, for lifetimes even. But it cannot stand up to the light of consciousness, to the warmth of your love. It cannot stand up to it. I don't care. This could have been like frozen for 20 lifetimes. But the warmth of your heart, the warmth of the love, if you just consciously connect with it, can melt it all. And it melted quite quickly. Now, quite quickly may not be 3 minutes. It may take 3 months of really practicing that. Most of the time it's quicker. The hardest things that I've dealt with took a few months. And then they're gone and they don't come back. That's the kicker. Because anything that you do that gives you temporary relief is pretty useless as soon as the pain comes back. We want permanent. What else do you call happiness? Do you call happiness a momentary high just before the crash? Or that peace in you that is so solid that it's timeless, and you watch the ups and downs of life that are inevitable. You watch them like waves on the surface, and here's that depth. And every human being has the capacity to feel that because it's there, and it has always been there. But if we're obstructed, if we're distracted by our habits and our owies, our complaints, and all of that stuff in the mind, then it is difficult to get to. That's why we have to train the mind. We have profound love in us. Profound. And if you take anything away from what we're doing here today, it's just feel or give yourself an invitation to your heart, to explore it, to relax into it. It's really a process of relaxing deeper and deeper. But you see, what's been happening is that we have this sense that there's all kinds of awful things in here. And they don't let us relax because we still have the sense that they're like a threat or an enemy. So we stay in tension on the surface of our being, distracting ourselves into superficial happiness and trying to ward off what we're afraid. And that's a pretty terrible life. So know that whatever can bother you, however dreadful it may seem, it is a part of you that needs help. And the medicine, the help for it is in you. We run to teachers and healers and gurus. They're wonderful. They have their place. They're like, we're in here inside of this eggshell of our present state, right? And they're knocking on the outside. Hello, time to come out. And something inside of us goes, no, I'm not ready. I'm still attached to my suffering. I'm this person who can't, or who's not good enough, or oh, I've gotten hurt. I'm this victim. But something in you, if you're listening to that, is ready to crack out of this damn eggshell. And as soon as you're out of it, you will notice that that eggshell that now seems like a protection, but it's really your prison. The prison that you live in your habitual suffering. The minute you break through it, you see that it's totally worthless, and you will let it go, and it's gone. And you enter an entirely new, different, greater realm of life, a new dimension of your being. That's the process of death and rebirth, and we go through it all the time. The key is to die while you're alive, which means to be reborn while you're alive. Until that process stops, because you're just free. You're no longer identified with the little chick inside the egg. And the chick inside the egg can be someone who has the grand ideas of spiritual realms and this and that and the other thing, and it's still an eggshell. Because it's just mental. And Katie says, when they come to kill you, and you feel nothing but pure love for them, then your work is done. So, okay, we got a little work to do. But so let's do it. Here we are. And we're alive. We have these human bodies, these human minds. We're capable of it. Let's do it. Let's support each other. Let's love that we can do this. Because evolution takes forever if it's not pursued consciously. If it's pursued consciously, it speeds up like crazy. And evolution means leaving the realm of suffering. So what better can you do than work with the very suffering in your life? And learn how to be a mensch, as we say. A juicy human being who can address even that which you're deeply afraid of. Because fear is just a mental habit and then goes into your body, and it can become absolutely paralyzing. And it's that fear that makes us unsafe. The thing we're afraid of may never happen, but we're already feeling unsafe because of the fear of what we imagine. So know that love in you, or at least have a whiff of it, and go after it. Become fascinated and fill yourself from that inner source. So you're filled to the point of just overflowing, and all you can think of is just finding somebody to share it with. Not because you want something back. That's not love. Because you're just so aware that when you give it away, you get more. You don't get more from out there, you get more here. It flows in. You have to create the vacuum. The giving creates the vacuum, which means you're immediately getting. Whether you give it to yourself in this old suffering, give it to other people. That reminds me, Kathmandu. There are many, if you are touched by the suffering of millions there are many good organizations you can donate to. I'm particularly connected with an organization called the Seva Foundation,
Seva.
S-E-V-A, Seva Foundation has done work in Nepal for a long time. They worked on blindness and have hospitals there and people on the ground in this place who know what's needed there. If you want to make a donation to the Seva Foundation, just Google it. They have an emergency fund for the situation that there now, which is very dire, and they appreciate any donation, any help. Now, what happens when we make a donation like this, a physical act of helping in whatever way? What happens is that from that inner place of the recognition that we have, and I talk about love, but that love can express itself in material wealth, in all kinds of different ways, that we have and we give. We give without strings attached. That's the important part, right? Then immediately we create that space and more can flow into our lives. So when we give to someone, we only give to ourselves, because that someone is actually ourselves. But even here in this place, this giving opens the door to getting more. So Seva Foundation, check it out. And not everyone is able to give some money or some help, and that's quite okay. But give of your heart, give of yourself, and you have to be the first recipient. Make yourself into a person who is part of the solution. Talking about solution. We have a retreat coming up. Second weekend in June, right?
Right.
If you're anywhere in the vicinity of Florida, that could be anywhere on the planet, you're invited. So check it out. We're sent out newsletters on it. It's on our website. We have a weekend together, June 12 to 14 on Kashi Ashram in Florida, about 2 hours north of Miami. Wonderful place, and we will just come together and celebrate this love and use the skills that we have to free whatever stands in its way. So we'd love to see you there. And we are busy now sharing this prasad. Let's just have a look what came there in the magic box. Here we go. Prasad from Taos for the satsang. Quinoa cookies, Nice stuff. Too bad you're not here. So be well, take care of yourself. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Much love. The love in you is the love we all share. Namaste.
Namaste.